Hi, Dominic. Thank you for submitting a new set of essays. I'm really looking forward to see what you wrote. Um, I have to tell you that the question you selected isn't really worded in a typical IELTS fashion. So I don't know where you got the question. It's always a good idea to write questions, or rather, write essays on questions that we can pretty much prove have been in the IELTS exam, but that's fine. We'll answer it nonetheless. It just makes sometimes writing your essay a little challenging if it's not an actual IELTS question. All right. Anyway, let's take a look at what you wrote. Shall the burden of elderly care be paid for out of family pockets or government coffers? The question is not only asked in Britain, but in every country with a similarly built social care system. As often as this question is raised, as often it remains unanswered. I personally believe there is no single answer. It depends rather on the underlying circumstances. Okay, let's talk about this. A couple of things. I think when you submitted your other essay, we had talked about paragraphing, and I see here that you do have paragraphs. Good. I don't like what you've done here with this question. You made it its own paragraph, so I'm definitely going to recommend that you don't do that. Um, it should all be part of one paragraph, okay? Because remember that paragraphing is marked in coherence and cohesion, and at the score you want to get, you really cannot afford any mistakes in paragraphing. So I would have put all of this into one paragraph, okay, and not have this question on its own. The second thing is the issue of the question. Um, it's not really recommended when writing an IELTS essay to include questions. I know some people like it, they think it's effective and so forth. Not really a great idea. What makes it worse is that the rules about using shall say that we only use shall for the first person, either singular or plural, so I or we, and not really like this with a third person, the financial burden. So you've got a grammatical mistake there. So I really would have just reworded this, be a little safer, do something a little, yeah, just basically a little more safe, a little, well, not a little more safe, a little safer, and a little more conservative. There we go. Okay, so it should have been, should the financial burden of elderly care be paid for I would have just said out of pocket. That's the most appropriate way of saying this. Or should be paid for out of pocket or from government coffers. So you can see that it read a little strangely. Let's try it like that one more time. Should the financial burden of elderly care be paid for out of pocket or from government coffers? That works better. And then this was, I mean, it was nice. I liked it. It was a little challenging to read. As often as this question is raised, as often it remains unanswered. It's nice. It's a little unnatural. Um, but whatever, it's fine. Now, let's see. You said there is no single answer. It depends on the underlying circumstances. I can see that it can be very tempting to kind of stick to the middle. But I do want to recommend to you that you at least go 51-49. Okay, because you do need to take a position. They're asking you very specifically. Um, so I can understand that might be tempting to just kind of go to the middle, 50-50. But again, give a little weight to one rather than the other. Okay, so you could have said, I personally believe that the underlying circumstances determine this, but by and large, it is the responsibility of the family. Okay, so something like that would have been good. Let's keep going. Now, here you've got this shall again, which I'm going to talk about for two reasons. Number one, we already talked about shall not being used like this, not being used in the third person. Okay, you only use it really in the first person, either singular or plural. But then, even if you decide to go with should, you've just used a very similar kind of effect in your introduction. So it feels then repetitive, like it's almost, how can I say this? Almost like a gimmick, almost like a little like ooh, this is what I'm going to use to make my writing sound, kind of different and unique and advanced. So it might work one time, but the second time it just kind of feels a little repetitive and it loses its effectiveness. So you wrote, shall there be financial support for seniors in the society? Okay, what you could have done here is clearly there should be financial support for seniors in a society. Okay, and that would have gotten rid of this issue entirely. If in Britain or in any other country, I believe a society has a responsibility for the people on whom it is built upon. All right, wait. On whom it is built, period. Because you already have on whom, and then you have upon. So it's either who it is built upon or on whom it is built. Okay, one or the other, but you can't use both. And then I don't like if here. It felt a little strange to me. So in Britain or in any other country, I believe a society has a responsibility for the people on whom it is built, period. Now, I know that in written texts and in spoken language, we use but at the beginning of a sentence all the time. However, I do want to tell you that for the purposes of IELTS, I'm going to recommend that you don't do this. It's considered informal. Some people would even say substandard. Generally, we try to avoid it, okay? Especially in an essay where you're trying to show your English language skill. So if you want to use something like but you want to be grammatically totally correct and maybe a little conservative, use however or use yet. Okay? So you could have said, society has a responsibility for the people on whom it is built. Yet, I also believe an individual or the family, not shall, stop with the shall, uh, should have options with regard, what's going on here? With regard to the care available to them. This is the point where I would lean towards the family pocket as a subsidizer for elderly care. The basic necessities in life, with an F, must, again, no shall here, must be provided by the government, including proper health care and adequate staffing in senior facilities, especially if government agencies are the sole provider of such services and of course, one F, if the person requiring care doesn't have the funds to provide for themselves. Okay, so some of this has kind of confused me. Okay, because the central idea kind of flip flops. Look at what you wrote here. You said that society has a responsibility for its people. Okay. Then, however, individuals are responsible for the family and blah, 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 the family should pay. And then you go back to government. So this was rather confusing. I really think you need to have one central idea, all right? Because you had like two sentences in favor of government and then two sentences in favor of family and then another two sentences in favor of government. So it becomes rather confusing. And then you no longer have a central idea. Okay. And so again, where does this affect you? It affects you in coherence and cohesion. Okay. So I would change this. Let's see what you have in the next paragraph. However, if the person in question is capable, not to, but of, if the person in question is capable of contributing to their own accommodation and needed services, it should be an option to pay for this out of pocket. This two-tier system might appear unfair to some, but it could be a way to alleviate the financial burden on the tax-funded care system. The private contributions should, no matter what, always result in a more comfortable situation for the person in need. Okay, it's fine. It's a little underdeveloped. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, okay? I personally am a proponent of the two-tier system, which doesn't mean the good care shall only be provided for those who can't afford it. Again, take it easy a little bit with the shall. By no means is that the case. Rather, comma, every government must provide the best possible care there is for the people it serves. Furthermore, it is, careful your grammar, it is necessary to prevent a tax-funded, it is necessary, I'm sorry, I'm confused here. It is necessary to prevent a tax-funded health or care system to become a self-serving entity with high cost and subpar service, which relies on family subsidies to merely survive without creating a meaningful additional comfort for the people it works for. All right, you confused me here. Yeah, no, I'm definitely confused in this last sentence. First of all, the sentence is too long. Okay, you can see that it's in 3 lines. Okay, so it's like 3 lines long, and it's just become confusing. And I'm not really happy with all the information you've included in your conclusion. So let's talk about this a little bit. I want to look at your paragraphs. The length of this was fine. The length of this was fine. But let me backtrack 1 minute. So where do you potentially stand a chance of getting a very high score in task achievement? In a couple of places. Remember that task achievement is all about how well you develop, how fully you develop, and so forth and so forth. So there are a couple of things that you do need to do from the beginning of your essay. I think we talked about them in your other essay. You have to mention your position in the introduction. That's a must. Okay? But then after that, it's really all about how well you answer the question and how fully. Looking at these paragraphs, I have concerns because you've got a conclusion that is even longer than one of your body paragraphs. And that's not what you want to do. Your conclusion has to do maybe 1 or 2 basic things. Number one, it needs to basically reiterate your position, okay, in a nice, brief, concise way. And then you need to just kind of finish off the essay, potentially with a thought-provoking idea or maybe a prediction for the future. There are a couple of different ways you can handle it. But in no case should your conclusion have any new information or information that could potentially should have belonged in one of your body paragraphs. And I feel like that's what you've done here because it's a lot longer. Honestly, your conclusion should be as long as your introduction, maybe even shorter. Okay, so this for me felt a little incorrectly written. And this felt to me definitely underdeveloped. So I would have shifted some of this around in order to make it more appropriate. Okay, because even visually, it looks a little weird. Of course, you've got that lovely vocabulary. Of course, you've got that lovely grammar, even though this time I saw some more errors than I did in your previous essay. So that's some food for thought for you. Okay. As you can see, the issues that we tackled were task achievement as well as coherence and cohesion. Okay, so those are the areas that I think for the score you need to get need to be worked on, which is not really a bad thing because they essentially deal with test taking skills and writing skills, and those are easier to acquire than, say, for example, excuse me, vocabulary and grammar. So you're in a good point. Okay. All right, let's take a look at your task one, see what you did there. All right, let's take a look now at your task one. You're having a problem with your room. There's a situation, the problems, and the accommodation you want. All right, let's see. Dear Sir and Madam, I would like to inform you about some dramatic issues in my current shared accommodation. My roommate creates a living environment which makes it really hard for me to study and work on my assignments. He has a large number of visitors coming and going all throughout the day and often till late at night. I already confronted him with the topic several times, but he doesn't see any necessity to dissolve the situation. The ongoing stream of people in our room is very distracting. Not only does it interfere with my studies and assignments, it also delays my bedtime, which results in reduced sleep at night and therefore exhaustion during the daily lectures. I hope you could assign me more suitable living quarters. A private room would be the preferred arrangement. However, I won't say no to a roommate with a similar dedication to learning and work like myself. I impatiently await your answer with a hopefully positive resolution to my problem. Sincerely, Dominic. Okay. On the whole, very good. Okay. On the whole, very good. 164 words. All right, these are the only words that count in your word count, by the way. I do want to mention a couple of things. Number one, dear sir or madam, you don't know the name of the person you're writing to. Therefore, convention says that you have to end the letter, when it's a formal letter, with yours faithfully. Okay? With the yours capitalized and the faithfully not capitalized. And then comma, don't forget the comma too. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about. Let's see. The other thing is that you were absolutely right that this was a formal letter and the style needed to be, the register needed to be considerably formal. That being the case, though, you probably shouldn't include contractions. Contractions are considered informal, and therefore you probably should avoid them here. So you use things like I won't say no. Um, he doesn't see any necessity. I didn't like this dissolve the situation. I thought that was a strange choice of words. Um, so when you wrote those expressions, I felt it leaned more informal than you probably want. So I would have changed that to more formal language. So I already confronted him with the topic several times, but he does not respond to my requests to change the situation. Okay. Um, let's see here. You said a private room would be the preferred arrangement. However, I would be satisfied with a roommate with a similar dedication to learning and work like myself. Okay. That would have been okay as well. I loved that you used some inversion here. That was great. Not only does it interfere, that was beautiful language. Okay, so just some little things here. I thought it was a well-written task one, but it did have those little issues that, when you're aiming for a band 8 and higher, you really want to be as error-free as possible. So I would definitely look into fixing some of those. So Dominic, are we going to see maybe an essay correction package with you so we can continue to help you work on your writing? I would love that. It's really a pleasure to work with somebody who has um, a nice level of English. So let's see if we can help you get to your score. Okay. Good luck, and I hope we get to see more of your work soon.